Welcome back into another episode of ROC Boys Football. Just an update for all you listeners out there. We are now on Apple Podcasts as well. So search ROC Boys Football in Apple Podcasts, and all our episodes that have been on YouTube are now downloaded to Apple Podcasts. And as usual, leave a rating, subscribe, and comment. We appreciate that all. That helps us out really big. And this episode is going to be Dylan and I ranking our top 10 coaches. So we're again taking another break from our conference breakdowns and doing another kind of discussion that Dylan and I have a lot, and that's evaluating our favorite coaches in the country. You guys are in for a good one because Dylan and I have kind of different philosophies when it comes to evaluating head coaches, and we'll get into it in a little bit. Schedule for the next coming episodes. The next episode, we'll get back into our conference breakdowns, finishing up with the Big Ten and Pac-12. But to start us off, Dill, what do you look for in a college football head coach? How did you evaluate your top 10 rankings?
So really, I was going off of overall success, and I was factoring in essentially how much, so where is that coach coming from? I'd say Dabo and Nick Saban's success at Alabama and Clemson respectively is a different level of success to say what Lincoln Riley's done, Ryan Day, or some of those coaches who have come into just incredible situations where they just were more in a position not to screw it up rather in a position to be building dynasties. So that's in essence, what I was kind of looking for was coaches who have a proven track record of building
winning football,
winning programs.
That's how you evaluate. Yeah. So obviously when it comes down to evaluating head coach, the final evaluation is how many games are you winning and how many games are you losing? Are you winning the big games? Are you winning the rivalry games? Are you bringing titles back to the program? But there was a couple other things that I was thinking about when I was evaluating these coaches. One is recruiting. I think that's such a big aspect of being a college football head coach. So I was looking at how do these coaches recruit, but also how do they develop players? Do they put players out? I guess it doesn't matter as much if they're putting them out into the draft, but are you taking these really high recruits and getting the best out of them? AKA, are you sending a lot of guys to the draft as a way you can evaluate that? Are they good leaders? Obviously, we have an idea of what coaches are really good leaders and get the guys going every Saturday. And finally, play calling coordinators. So are they either calling really good plays or are they getting coordinators who are in the building that are really, really good? And so without further ado, I think Dylan and I both have the number one coach as Nick Saban. And overall, he's a great recruiter, always comes in with a top 5 class. But what separates him is he's a great developer. I mean, you guys at Alabama, they're putting 6 guys in the top 2 rounds almost every year, and he's a great leader. So he's developing these guys into squeezing out every ounce of potential they have, and he's leading young men every week and having his team ready to go. And finally, he's always had phenomenal coordinators. He's had Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian. Now he's got Bill O'Brien. It's NFL talent. And there's some of the greatest minds on both sides of the ball working for him. So, Dill, I'm assuming you had Nick Saban 1 too.
Yeah, I mean that seems like a no-brainer. I mean, if you just can't talk about anything else. I think he's the best ever do it, and
he will go.
He's making it less and less close every passing year.
And then 2, I have Dabo Swinney. Who do you got?
Dabo. I think this is another clear one. Phenomenal coach. Just he really took a team similar to Alabama that was really in the gutters, built it up, does everything right. Again, awesome players, great player development, great recruiting.
Yeah, he's all well-rounded, dominates.
Has coaches like Brent Venables, and Tony Elliott, both stars. I think, again, just building up really good coaches, building a winning culture, changing a culture, which is probably the hardest thing to do. And I don't know. It seems pretty obvious for him too.
I think most of the listeners out home are going to have Nick Saban and Dabo 1 and 2. Now, after 1 and 2, it gets a little bit dicey. I have Jimbo Fisher, which is, I think, a little bit maybe less popular, but looking at what he did at Florida State was he did a phenomenal job at Florida State. But then at Texas A&M, I mean, they went from 2018, he had a tough recruiting class, 18th, but that was kind of dealing with Kevin Sumlin leaving and trying to keep players on the team. But then you look at his next two, 4th best, 6th best, and 8th best. I mean, he's a very, very good recruiter. And we're going to really see coming into this year, like how he's been developing those guys. And a lot of those guys are supposed to be some top draft picks this year. I think the Texas A&M Aggies team is going to be good, and I think Jimbo Fisher is a phenomenal coach for them.
I mean, in my opinion, really what separates him and Dabo is Jimbo really struggling in his final years at Florida State. And it seems like he just kind of gave up on that job.
He was out of there.
And it's hard to explain what happened. I don't know. At those big schools, you never know if it's the administrators or an AD who's giving you or a booster. Like, who knows? At Texas, what are you going to blame every bad coach on bad coaching? It's like there's so much else going on.
And I think,
seems like.
Can you hear me now? I think another thing that's interesting is it's just hard to have continued success at a program like Dabo and Nick Saban have done. I mean, you see very little coaches who make it 10 plus years of consistent winning football. I mean, I'm looking through this list, and there's not many coaches who've been at their same school for 10 years. It's hard to do, and what Dabo and Nick Saban have done has been extremely impressive. And so we'll see what Jimbo Fisher can bring this year, but I'm excited and optimistic about it. I think he's a phenomenal coach. Moving on to number 4, I had Kirby Smart. He's the best. He might be the best recruiter in the country. I mean, they bring just phenomenal recruiting classes in every single year. I think the one big knock you have on Kirby Smart is letting Justin Fields slip out of that program. I mean, that realistically cost them a national championship. I think they win a national championship with one of those teams if you have Justin Fields in, especially last year. That team was very, very talented. It just Stetson Bennett ain't it, bro. He ain't it. JT Daniels.
Yeah, that is tough. That's 2 tough quarterback decisions. I mean, to leave Fromm in there for 3 years with some of those teams they had was tough because he really regressed, it seems like, from his freshman year.
Yeah, just letting Justin Fields
good
slip
enough
out.
football. Yeah, Justin Fields has to be playing. It's like, I mean, looking at him and Fromm, it's night and day. It's not close. So that I agree. That hurts him. But again, I totally agree. He also changed the culture. He brought Georgia back to being every year they're going to compete with Bama, LSU, no matter how good those teams are. Georgia's always right there with them. So I think he has to be at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, Alabama and LSU have had 2 of the best football teams we've had in the last 50 years in college football. And so
what hurts him a little bit is not being able to beat Bama anytime. That hurts. But
I think that this year is going to put him on the map. I mean, you guys know, you listeners at home know how big on Georgia. I think they're going to win the national championship this year. I was watching film on their Cincinnati bowl game earlier this morning, and that team is returning so much talent on both sides of the ball. So, I mean, we'll see after this year. We'll have to revisit it, but Kirby Smart's 4. We'll see if he jumps Jimbo, if he wins a national title in Athens. Moving on to 5, I had Lincoln Riley. I'm looking back at it, and what you said is right. He inherited a wagon of a program, and it was really more of like, you don't need to establish any culture. You don't need to start winning football games. Just don't mess it up. And he came in, and he hasn't messed it up. I think this year's their best chance they've had to win a national title in a while, so we'll see.
I think he's elevated them a little bit. That's why I have him at 5, because he did take over a great, no disrespect to Bob Stoops, but now it doesn't look like there's a chance another Big 12 team can really touch him. And it's like, maybe you think Iowa State can give him a run this year, but I don't know. They got pasted last year in that
Texas
tournament.
Is just being terrible at football.
I guess you could argue that, but it's like Matt Rule tried to give him a run at Baylor. He kept him at bay. He's just better. He's taken a program in Oklahoma that won Big 12 titles, and he's made them a team that wins every year, and it's a shoe-in. And it really hasn't been close or tested in his 4-year reign at Oklahoma. So
talk
I
about.
also think you got to give him credit. Like, he shows up, he plays those teams tough. I mean, he gave Georgia everything they could handle in a year that Georgia possibly could have been a national title. They were freaking Tua throwing that touchdown to Smith away. And so I think he's taken that team to a new level. I think he deserves to be number 5, but I do agree. He inherited a phenomenal football team.
He's developed 2 first overall picks in Baker and Kyler.
He might have
2 Heisman Trophy winners in that too, and he's about to have a 3rd in Rattler probably too. So he's 5. I feel pretty good about it. 6 is Ryan Day. A pretty similar. You don't have Ryan Day? Wow, that's the first time we disagreed.
Ryan Day.
Got the Michigan shit on. No, I think Ryan Day. He's recruited well there. Yes, he inherited a very good program too, and Urban Meyer pretty much was on his right hip for that first year. But he's done good. That's been a really similar to Lincoln Riley. Nobody's really sniffed a Big Ten title since he's been there. I know it's only been a couple of years,
but that wasn't happening. No one was sniffing it when Urban was there.
Where do you have Ryan Day in your top 5 or top 10?
No, I don't. He hasn't proved anything yet. He inherited as good as you think the situation Lincoln came into. It is nothing compared to what that Ohio State program was. I mean, they were recruiting as well as anyone in the country. They were winning games. I mean, in the Big Ten, nobody could really touch them. The only times they lost is on freak upsets. And I think those Ohio State teams were generally more talented than Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma did come in and beat them that year. But
who do you have 6 then?
I have Dan Mullen.
No
right
way.
Now, I want Dan Mullen. Give me Dan Mullen. The guy wins at horrible situations. I mean, that Mississippi State team that he took over was an absolute joke. He took them into relevance in the SEC West, which is almost impossible. I mean, you think of coaches who have tried. Hugh Freeze is the only other one, and he got slapped and brought that program to its knees with the recruiting violations he had. So I don't know. It's the guy won at Mississippi State, joke of a program. He's taking Florida, which was possibly on the level of Texas in terms of broken cultures. And he's, I think, reestablishing them as a team that's got to be contended with. So I don't know. You disagree with me all you want, but Dan Mullen's a phenomenal coach.
Dan Mullen is I think there's a high chance that he gets fired after this year. He's gonna put out such a bad team this year. This year they're gonna struggle immensely. And look at last year, they had you talk about culture. I don't think a single soul on that defense wanted to tackle anybody.
They were the only team that could play with Bama. Nobody else gave Bama even a look.
Yeah, because they had Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney. And that's good for him that he got those guys and developed them. But this year they don't have any of that.
Stars.
I'm telling you right now, I think Dan Mullen's in a world of trouble at Florida. I don't like that. I get a feeling that direction of Florida, they're out there fighting Missouri, throwing shoes off LSU players to lose games. That culture is broken. You talk about culture.
It's not broken. They have terrible. They've been from what they had. They couldn't win a game, and now they're challenging anybody. He took over such a horror show from Jim McElwain and who was the one from South Carolina? Muschamp.
Yeah.
So those two came in and destroyed the program one after another, just beat it down. And he did lift them back up. As much as you think they stink, they played with everybody last year. They played with A&M. They played with Bama.
Lost LSU, which is hilarious.
But they did still go to the SEC title game. They beat Georgia. I don't know. It's it's as much as you hate that Florida team, they were very successful. So I don't know.
Okay, I have Dan Mullen. I have Dan Mullen as an honorable mention.
Disrespectful.
Yeah, I just don't. I think the Florida. I'm just sour on the direction of that Florida program.
You're just mad about this season. What Florida's going to do.
I have a lot of stake in them being terrible. So
you have your life on it now.
Yeah, I have my life reputation on it. I just don't. I think that team's going to struggle. I think Dan Mullen seems a little out of touch with the locker room. So we'll table it. we'll see how Dan Mullen and the Florida Gators do this fall, and then maybe we'll circle back to it. Moving on, that was 6. Moving on to 7, who do you got?
I have Brian Kelly. It's tough. It's like on some level, he's put out some horrible football teams at a school like Notre Dame, which hurts him. But I mean, he took over some really, really tough years.
Have they ever had a terrible team under Brian Kelly?
They had one our freshman year of college.
Yes, they were
5 years ago. They were very bad. So they've won some huge games, beat Michigan, taken them to 2 national title appearances, even though he's got tasted both of them. But you're right. Playoffs, 1 national title game and a playoff game. But I don't know. It's like the guys, he's had some really successful seasons. It's like if you were a fan of a random team, not a random team, but a Power 5 football team that's generally good, you take Notre Dame's, you take what they've done in the last 10 years or so. And not to mention what he did at Cincinnati was honestly one of the most incredible coaching jobs ever. So I don't know. He's tough to leave off. And it's like, I don't love him. I don't think he's ever going to make Notre Dame particularly good, but he's a really, really solid coach. And there's not many coaches who can say that. So
I have him at 6. I have Brian Kelly at 8.
7.
So I have him at 8. And I kind of what we talked about with Nick Saban and Dabo, it's hard to stay at a big program for that long and just be pretty consistent. Like Notre Dame, barring like a few seasons, has been the consistent top 10, top 15 program, making a couple of college football playoffs games. I mean, he's just been kind of the definition of consistency there. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do at programs like Notre Dame.
It's really hard.
So you got to give respect where it's warranted. I don't like him as a coach. Like I don't really root for Notre Dame, but he's done a solid job there. And I have him at 8. I have Matt Campbell at 7. And I love Matt Campbell. I love me some Matt Campbell.
I know you do.
I mean, you talk about like he's never had the best recruiting classes. Talk about development though. I mean, they're gonna put out maybe 7, 8 guys into the draft next year. I mean, that's a phenomenal development, and they're gonna be a top 10 team. They went from he took over that team 4 years ago. They were 2-7, and now they're competing for Big 12 title games, winning games against Oklahoma. And then this year, I think this is a very, very, very good football team. And I think Matt Campbell might be the best leader among men that we see in college right now. I mean,
that's fine. I get what he's doing at Iowa State's good and all, but who wants to see a coach like Matt Campbell stay at Iowa State? He just signed that big deal. I mean, why wouldn't you want to go coach Texas? Like that's
you're going to go in the Big 12.
That's where you go. That's where you go make your money. No one.
He doesn't. Do you think he cares about?
You might think they might have a sniff at the Big 12 once, but you're never going to win a national title in Ames, Iowa. So like, I kind of discount what he's doing there. It just doesn't matter to me that much.
Talk about taking teams out of the basement. You talk about taking teams out of the basement. Like that's exactly what Matt Campbell done. He's completely changed the culture from the doormat of the Big 12 to I'm a Big 12 maybe champ in a couple months. And so like what he's done, that is so hard to do. Les Miles tried to go and do in Kansas, and I mean, like that wasn't going anywhere anyways before the allegations. But I mean, I don't think the world of Les Miles though. I think he's a solid football coach, but I don't think he was going there with the intent to try or put any effort in. So I don't know. If it's me, I want to see coaches go to big power programs that. I mean, there is a different animal coaching Texas than Iowa State because you need to be able to walk through loads of pressure and outside noise, which does add some level of difficulty to coaching. You think Dan Mullen could do what Matt Campbell's doing at Iowa State? 1,000%, I think. You think Dan Mullen could bring? I think Dan Mullen made a Mississippi State team. I think those peak Mississippi State teams probably beat his Iowa State teams right now. So that's But Iowa
And
State
then Dan
started
Mullen
out.
then had the balls to go up and coach a real football program. Like
That's
I don't know.
that's
Matt
unfair.
Campbell's sitting it down at Iowa State.
No,
like, who cares?
that's that's freaking unfair to say that he's
No, it's not.
Dude, he wants to see it through. He's brought back this program, and he obviously
for
thinks he can
7
bring
years. Ugh, snooze.
He's gonna. I mean, what if he establishes Iowa State as like a national powerhouse? Like, I mean, that's probably what he
then
wants
he'll
to do.
Jump up to my rankings, but
yeah, all right. Well,
I don't think they're there now. It's not
when
like
they make the college football
people.
playoffs next year. We'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, moving on.
At number
9.
8, I had Gus Malzahn personally. I know you
got
don't
fired, bro.
But that's an impossible job at Auburn
because he didn't make it
with that Alabama football team in the state. Like that's such a difficult job. He's beaten Nick Saban 3 times, which is probably more than any coach in the history of the game right now. So he's winning the big games. He took them to a national title. I don't know. The guy's made an incredibly competitive program at Auburn. And I'm talking all this in the state of Alabama.
Was Gus Malzahn? You said they took him to a national title. I don't think
he lost to Jimbo. He did. He lost to Jimbo.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So he did do he's had some phenomenal success. And again, if you look at his record, what is Auburn like? They're not going to get anyone better than him. So I think they made a massive mistake. And I get you want to shake it up, but
you put a top 10 guy in your ranks.
I don't think it's a good firing. I mean, you're gonna.
I kind of agree. Where I just don't know. Like, I don't know who are you gonna get a better coach than Gus Malzahn? I don't think. It's kind of the same thing we talk about with Michigan.
Not from that Boise State guy. I tell you.
Yeah, exactly. No, I see where you're coming from.
Auburn's a freaking hard job. It's like coaching Michigan State kind of. It's just hard when you're the second best in the state.
So that was 8 for you. That was 8 for you.
Yeah.
So I was super conflicted because there's so many good coaches that I wanted to include on this list, and it kind of gets muddled. I feel confident in my top 8, and then I feel like it falls off because I wanted to include Dan Mullen. I wanted to include someone like Paul Chryst. A sneaky one is Herm Edwards. I know they're getting tacked with the recruiting violations, but Arizona State's gonna be a great football team.
I had Mike Leach in the honorable mention. I don't know. He does such a good job at the places.
So I have 9. I've had Ojon.
Oh no!
Is that I mean the thing is I don't think he's a great coach. I really don't. But I couldn't ignore that he put out possibly the best college football team we've ever seen. Can you just ignore that?
You can't follow it up with a total dud because that means you struck gold with players.
COVID year,
he was a dud at Ole Miss when he was there, and nobody else gave him a job. I don't know. To me, Ed Ogeron has put one great year out. Every other year, he's been fairly average at LSU, and I don't know. To me, he struck gold with a super hot team. And I think he's riding that, but I don't think he has much else. I think he recruits pretty well, but he develops quite poorly on a certain level. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't seem like he runs a great ship in a sense.
I don't get a vibe. Yeah,
he's in control of where he is.
Yep.
I think that's why USC passed on him and why it didn't work out at Ole Miss. So I don't know. To me, I
couldn't ignore it though. I don't know. I can see. I see where you're coming from.
He's going to need to put a team that wins again, and he certainly didn't even come close this year. And again, you're right. COVID year plus losing all those guys, but he didn't have good enough teams the years before either, and he inherited a pretty decent program from Les Miles. So
yeah, okay, fair. Who do you have 9?
I had Mario Cristobal personally. He took over an Oregon team from Willie Taggart that was really, really bad.
But only one. That was only
Yeah, but they really never could do it after Mark Helfrich left, in my opinion. It seems like they never got back on track and weren't recruiting like Oregon did. And I really like what Mario Cristobal is doing there. He's recruiting against everybody and he's winning, and they're winning games. I think he's won 2 Big
Couple Pac-12s.
Pac-12.
Yep.
Sorry, and he won a Rose Bowl, which is
Yeah, no, he's been
I also
solid.
think what he did at FIU was really impressive to turn that team around and go to bowl games after. God, they were in such a dumps.
Yeah.
So I don't know. His body of work and the direction it seems like he's put Oregon on, I think he's got to be up there because that's I don't think it's as easy of a job as people think because they really were a nothing program until Chip Kelly came and they don't quite have the history of a Notre Dame or USC and some UCLA. So he's got to go up and recruit those teams, which he's doing. And I really love what he's doing at Oregon. So I have him as my 9th.
That's fair. And then 10, I included a couple names. So Paul Chryst was my 10th at Wisconsin.
That's fair.
I think he's just he's also like a guy who's just been steady as it goes. Like I'm just going to be a top 15 program pretty much every year. He knows what his identity. The thing what's holding me back is like he hasn't really like cracked it. He's pretty much just like content with being like a solid.
And he
team.
never will. Is probably the biggest issue. It's like he's not recruiting the guys to do it. I mean, it's tough at Wisconsin. I'm not like it's not an easy job. So I'm with you. I do like him. I personally I don't love him for the reasons we just laid out, but I can see why you'd call him 10th.
So he's up there. I had PJ Fleck. I know they had a tough year this year. The thing is, like, you just hold these biases because you don't like the rah-rah coaches, but like what he did at Western Michigan was very, very impressive. And then what he did at Minnesota the year before COVID was really solid. Like, I mean, he brought.
I just haven't seen enough, I guess.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, but you've seen it at Western Michigan. Like, you talk about Mario Cristobal's history at FIU. Like, PJ Fleck was phenomenal.
He's winning Pac-12 titles in a row.
Yeah, but he didn't take over Minnesota, dude. Oregon's different. Oregon had like national championship pedigree. And then I had PJ Fleck, which I feel all right about. I had
PJ Fleck. I shouldn't have blabbed him. He's the coach.
I had Mac Brown. You just don't like those rah-rah guys, honestly, but that's fine.
That's fair.
And then Mac Brown I had, who was like very solid at Texas. He's bringing back a very good UNC team. He's done good there.
He's a guy I omitted, but I kind of regret. It's like just the coach. Like if you look at his ranking or his success, like you take him any day. So I have a little regret of leaving him off mine. I put my 10th right now as James Franklin. Personally, I love what he's done at Penn State. I mean, he's brought them into a national level of recruiting, and I thought what he did at Vandy was incredible. Like, and that's the worst program to
end up with. That's really the hardest job.
Because you're basically, I mean, to be able to get 9 wins in 2 consecutive years at Vandy, because you're playing in the SEC, and it's, I mean, they're the doormat. They lose every game in that conference. So what he was able to do there is really impressive. And I do think he's made Penn State a very, very formidable team. And I know he took over a decent opportunity from Bill O'Brien, who was righting the ship, but still coming off like historically intense punishments from the scandals that they were involved in. So I think what he's done is essentially take what Bill O'Brien's was bringing up and has taken them to a next level where they're competing with Ohio State, and they only beat Ohio State once, but they always fight them, and obviously beat Michigan. So yeah, I really like what he's done. I'm leaving him at 10 because I don't ever see him as taking a program to the next level, but he's done a phenomenal job there. I can't think
of any more honorable mentions. Those are the guys I had.
The fact that you're not going to honorably mention Mike Leach is crazy, because that guy goes to absolute dumpster schools and just makes them super competitive. Wazoo, who's ever heard of Wazoo? They stink. He makes them fight. He puts them in a position to fight everyone. Like they were a big. What? He's bringing game day loose programs.
But that's a loose definition of like fight. And like Mississippi State last year wasn't great. Like But
I'm talking like they're like Vanderbilt of the Pac-12. They're horrible.
They're definitely not as like that bad.
But that's just because the rest of the Pac-12 is not as good. But they're a really weak program, and I do think he's done he did an amazing job at Texas Tech. That was a shame that he got fired because of Craig James and that little stunt he pulled. But yeah, I don't know. That's
I don't include Mike Leach yet. I think he's a gimmick guy. He's not on my list.
He's gimmicky, but he wins games. And
I'll tell you, like
probably the best offensive coach.
Kirk Ferentz has kind of been like when we talk about consistency. He's been.
I thought
solid.
so, but you look at those records, like you're
he's average,
6 so often,
and they're just letting it slide. Gary Patterson at TCU is like he was really good, and then has been struggled lately. But you asked me 4 years ago what I think about TCU and Gary Patterson. He's a top 10 coach. He hasn't been great the last couple of years. And so, yeah, those are the guys I rounded out with. So to close up, we want you guys to let us know, are we forgetting any coaches? Do you guys have problems with our rankings? And then again, check out the website because we published a few articles about the NFL draft in 2022. And then as usual, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and the new podcast. We're going to try to be coming out on Spotify pretty soon too, so look out for that. And once again, thanks y'all for listening and tuning in. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.